since evolution took over Cal in 2015. So I'm going to talk about some of the more kind of exploration and metallurgically relevant aspects of that. We've got ongoing research happening there as well, but there'll be publications and things like that coming out from those current researchers, so I don't want to steal their thunder. And then some thoughts on the middle to late Ordovician and the potential for quality deposits a little bit earlier than everyone seems to like to look for. So firstly, I'd also like to acknowledge key contributors on site. Really, I'm just kind of a mouthpiece for a bunch of work that other people have done. People on site who've made massive contributions to understanding the geology and getting that site to where it is with the discovery and resource and now mining, particularly of the Cal Underground. Ben Reid, Matt Green, who's here, Zach Murphy, who's here as well, and also a number of others listed there. Also, one of the key research relationship we've had has been with UTAS Codes, but also some really important contributions from GSNSW, and of course Scott's always there. All right, so those of you who don't know, Cal gold operations are located in the Cal Igneous Complex, which is a segment of the Junee Narromine belt of the Canberra Ordovician volcanic arc. So we've got quite a commanding tenement position both at Cal and also now North Parks. It's nice to have the best parts of the belt stitched up and a couple of fantastic operations to look at, still with plenty of potential. So to just dip into, give it a little bit of an intro into the geology of the Cal district. So we're looking at the Canberra Ordovician, the arc here. So the Ordovician rocks are sandwiched between major controlling faults and younger rocks, but defining a belt of about 40 kilometres by 15 kilometres of Ordovician arc rocks. So we see some differences. The geology here is kind of divided loosely up into the northern part of the belt being dominated by dominantly intermediate to mafic volcanics and volcaniclastics. And then south of a relatively cryptic northwest trending linear, we tend to see dominantly igneous rocks of a vast range of compositions that are more abundant to the south. And so in that southern section of the block, we see a number of localities with porphyry style mineralisation, including the Marsden, on which there's a resource and once upon a time was a cracker of a calcalic porphyry deposit. But all of the mining thus far and the centre of our operations is based in the gold corridor here, which is about a 6 by 2 kilometre corridor of epithermal gold mineralisation that we've been mining there, well, Barrick and then us mining it since 2005. So this really is I think a great success story for evolution, but also a great success story for near mine and brownfields exploration in New South Wales. Since evolution's taken over, we've grown the resource and reserve at Cal significantly, despite having produced about 2.5 million ounces in the meantime as well. And much of that is on the back of the Cal Underground, which you can see here. So the GRE 46 deposit that is now the focus of the Cal Underground, where we've taken that from discovery of the Dalwhinnie ore body and the expansion of Regal to be now in production, and a really critical component of the future of the operation, both extending its LOM and also ramping production up to higher levels than there has been in the past. So we've got 9 million ounces of mineral resource there now, of which 2.74 is in the underground. And we're seeing results that suggest that's going to continue to grow. So this system now, if you add up the past production and the resource, it has an endowment of 14 million ounces, and that's a pretty nice sized deposit. So just a bit of an introduction into GRE 46. So we've got a long section here that you can see So we've got mineralisation and resources defined pretty much continuously from surface to a bit over 900 metres below and open, drill constrained, and over about 1.2 kilometres of strike length. So we divide this up into five geologically distinct different areas within the overall corridor. So I've got Galway and Dalwhinnie to the south, and then Endeavour and Regal to the north. And this zone through here, Edredor, which I believe is Gaelic for the gap, no prizes, is certainly, you know, we're filling that in and getting some fantastic results in there to link up the whole corridor. So the deposits, the zones that we see to the north are hosted primarily in this trachyandesite unit here. And then to the south, largely in volcaniclastics, and also around the Dalwhinnie andesite, which is a thin andesitic unit. And so we see mineralisation primarily associated with where you get structural complexities and rheology contrasts, and also the interaction with these nor-northwest and nor-northeast trending faults. But overall, the corridor itself is largely north-south and defined best by being in the footwall of that muddy lake diorite that you can see there in pink. So just to show the different styles of mineralisation we're seeing there. So all of the mineralisation at Cowal is largely hosted in quartz carbonate, pyrite, base metal sulfide veins. The veins themselves are generally high grade, but usually we're mining low vein density vein arrays where you've got, you know, 1 to 3% vein density per metre, so you end up with, you know, 1 to 3 grams of gold ore in them. So we see them generally in a range of different vein sets, multiple different vein orientations in any one zone, but where you see the orientation of those and the contribution of gold from the different sets changes from one zone to another based on the local structural controls. So in Endeavour and Regal in the north, we tend to see more of a dominance of what we term QSBs, quartz sulfide breccias, which are just larger veins, kind of decimetre scale veins, often with multiple reopening textures in them. So where we see the dominance of those controlling grade, and they tend to be more steeply south to south-southeast dipping. In Regal, we also see a significantly more sericitic alteration than we do it being more fracture controlled in other parts of the deposit. In Dalwhinnie, we see a slightly different style of mineralisation being a bit more common, where we've got more pyrite stringers and disseminated pyrite in the both competent and relatively, you know, iron-rich compared to the surrounding Dalwhinnie andesite through there. And so a key control on localising where we're seeing shoots is where we see flexures in the diorite being a competent buttress. So where we see these what are termed overhangs, we've actually got these lips that have been developed through there, and then we see the interaction of these north-northeast or nor-northwest trending faults and flexures in rheologically distinct units within the volcaniclastics. They're the kind of classic sites where we're seeing better vein densities developed through there and higher grades. So we've never stopped drilling, and in fact we're drilling more than ever at GRE 46. We're looking at about 175,000 metres of core in the next year, and continuing to do that as we drill the deposit out to finer scale to better define the boundaries of ore through there. So as you can see there, and you may have seen in releases, we've been getting some great results from the Edredor drilling that you can see through the centre area here. We're getting, you know, intervals around 30 grams at 30 metres at 4 or 5 grams, and then along at Dalwhinnie South, getting some fantastic hits there at, you know, 5 to 10 grams over really nice widths as well. So we're just continuing to see the growth of this ore body. And one of the key things that we're seeing with this as well is that we're adding ounces per vertical metre. So we're finding, you know, more gold on the same levels and along strike, which is really important for improving and optimising the economic viability of the deposit, because it means we can get more ounces for a given amount of development. So, but there's always challenges, particularly with gold. What are some of them that we've been seeing? So we often see low displacement, very, very frequent post-mineral faults associated with the numerous post-mineral compressional events. These tend to cause offsets to mineralised loads. That means your drilling generally is less likely to hit a load than it's there, because you get short-range extensional offsets. So that, affects the representativity of drilling, and the reason why, we've got a strong focus on continuing to do that infill drilling. Also, defining the ore waste boundaries is a real challenge with this deposit. So often you can find the middle of the lodes, which are often maybe focused on QSBs or more visually apparent veins, but the ore waste boundary, which is the really important part to define, is based on essentially a vein density change in an already low density deposit. So defining that, is a challenge. But what we're finding as we work in this deposit is, like, I guess number one, the thing is, like, whenever I go there, I don't see any surprises. To me, this is how I would have imagined this deposit to look based on the modelling and the work we did beforehand. So we've done some really good geological work that's given us as best a picture as we possibly can with this deposit before getting in there. So there's always challenges, but we're dealing with those and working through them. So some of the key parts of that have been the maintaining our ongoing implicit modelling and use of Leapfrog Geo there as a key kind of tool embedded in the workflows with the mine and ResDev geologists, and also critically making sure we're carefully scheduling in the infill drilling that we need to do, so there's time to get those assays back, remodel the mineralisation, and then consider that in the mine planning before we try and get in there and do stuff. And the other thing that we're seeing as we infill drill as well is generally getting slightly less tonnes at higher grade for slightly more ounces overall. So the right thing you want to see. So I'm just going to talk now a little bit about some of the research outcomes that we've had, particularly out of Code's work. And I'm going to refer to a bit of stuff, particularly done by Chris Leslie, but also with input from other researchers there. I've got some links there. I'm not going to talk about Marcus's or Malai's stuff today, but you can see Malai presenting in the 2022, and also he's just had a paper released, and Marcus has got a couple of papers coming out in collaboration with GSNSW shortly. So to talk a bit about the igneous petrology, you've seen this diagram already yesterday, thanks Peter. So one of the things I wanted to define, and out of the work that Chris Leslie did, which was quite a lot of dating work and looking at the chemistry and defining the different phases of intrusions, of which there are very many through the Cow block, but was that we really see a dominance in the intrusive phases of phase 2 to phase 3 of Crawford et al.'s cycles within the Macquarie Arc, and there's very limited evidence in the geochron. It is there, but very limited and rare examples of where we're seeing the kind of more 440 phase 4 type intrusions that most people are looking for. And also most of those intrusive phases that we see around the gold corridor are cut by mineralisation. So one of the things that, with the way Chris divided things up and looked at spatial and temporal patterns, was defining two overall suites or collections of intrusive rocks, a southern one and a northern one, that show similar trends of ramp up in strontium over yttrium over time. That's basically just representing the ramp up and continued fractionation of hornblende, titanite and other phases that you see with relatively hydrous wet fractionation. So we're seeing both of those and then culminating towards the end of those cycles with mineralisation occurring. So in that southern block, which is overlapping but generally a bit earlier, we're seeing that ramp up trend that you can see there. And then we see the porphyry style mineralisation poking up Marsden, actually probably the oldest in the belt, at 467, but these other ones into the kind of high 450s. And then we see a similar trend in the intrusions in the northern block, interestingly, coincident with possibly being separated by this Marsden lineament through here in the gold corridor, where we see things happening a little bit later. We've got a bit of probably slightly younger porphyry style mineralisation at Central Cow. The epithermal style mineralisation is probably somewhere around that 450-ish time, but to be honest, the direct age dates aren't there yet and aren't fantastically constrained, but we know it's got to be younger than all the intrusive faces there. So one of the other interesting phases of intrusions that we see through the area is this series of niobium-rich intrusions. Usually they're diorite porphyries. I'm sorry, it is an intrusive rock type in New South Wales that doesn't have Monzo in front of it. So apologies for that. But so that occurred at around 459 MA, which is about the time between when we're seeing that shift from the porphyry style and southern activity to the northern. And what this is probably indicating is that you've probably had some sub-tearing and you've got some undepleted mantle that's melted and come through to get those high niobium. So it's actually similar to the process we see with the tearing after the Benambrum, but we're seeing this at a much earlier time in here, in the Cow block. Some of the other work that Chris did was look at the zircon chemistry, and similar to studies that have been done with porphyry deposits all around the world, you want to see complicated zircons that are showing an interesting history where we've got quite a lot of inheritance in these zircons, but showing earlier cores out to younger mantles and then younger again rims, and we're seeing changes in the chemistry of those, as you can see on this gadolinium versus terbium over the europium anomaly, suggesting that as you go from cores up here through mantle to rim, you're tending to see these changes that are probably reflecting the crystallisation of zircon in wet conditions and in the presence of titanite. We've done a bit of green rock work as well. There was a little bit done earlier on, some by Chris and then some by Francisco Testa when he was a postdoc researcher there, and then COVID happened. So what can we do without him being in the field? So we did a bit more green rock work. So one of the interesting things about the Cow is that most of the porphyry prospects and in the gold corridor, we're seeing the elevated antimony and arsenic concentrations in the epidote there that are consistent with the distal signature for large gold deposits, large porphyry deposits. And so that's showing in the red dots there is the stuff from Cow versus North Parkes, which interestingly shows the smaller deposits. So, something that we're probably beyond this being particularly applicable. We've kind of drilled to the point where, we have better estimates of the size of things around us, but, interesting for people like Inflection to look at. So just wanted to close with, some ideas and I guess a bit of a question to the audience around the remaining search space that there is in the Macquarie Arc. And, well, is 440 all there's worth exploring for? And I want to talk about Marsden. So Marsden, has got a resource that's about 500,000 tonnes of contained copper and a bit over 1 million ounces of gold. And you're like, yeah, that's kind of modest, but that's an issue of preservation and post-mineral faulting. So, there's a 30-degree dip Marsden thrust that's sitting under that with Devonian sediments in the footwall of that. and then we've got a cover sequence above. So really we're dealing with like a 25-degree slice of what was once a really good quality porphyry with a nice core of hundreds of metres across, at 0.8 gold, 0.8 copper. So before that thing was sliced and diced, it was probably a multiple of that. If it was 1 billion tonnes, which is maybe upper end, but completely reasonable, I think, then you're looking at something with, 5 million tonnes of copper and 8 or 10 million ounces of gold. That is one quality calc-alkalic oldest porphyry copper in the belt. So, there's been, and with good reason, focus on that, 440 kind of inter-Benambaran and alkalic porphyry related metallogenic phase within the Macquarie Arc. I don't think that's going to change from being the most important contributor, but we've got a lot of evidence in the cow block for earlier quality mineral systems having been developed. So, when we kind of reflect on this, do we need to rethink about how we define the search space in the Macquarie Arc? Do we need to loosen our using 440 as a criteria for whether something's prospective or not? I think so. But yeah, just overall to summarise, I think the story at the Cowal Underground just continues to develop. We continue to grow it. It's does what it says on the tin generally as we mine it. We've had some great contributions from research that are helping us to understand the metallogeny of the belt and what might still be there, and a call to question some of the assumptions we might make about the relative prospectivity of different gold and copper events in the belt. I'll finish up there. Thanks.